The Last of Us is one of the most popular games of the 2010s in a time where everything was about zombies. You could look left, you could look right, you could look up, down, under your fucking, I don't know, little sister's bed. There was some kind of zombie something there. But this game in particular is still being milked as a cash cow for Sony. I mean, they re-released the game again for PS5 and it has like a fucking $60 or $70 price tag. That's insane, right? This game came out in the PS3 era, which is in like what, 2013, 2012, some shit like that. We already know the story about Joel, a man that lost everything, including purpose, and then finding it again and taking care of Ellie. And we know about Ellie, a 14-year-old girl who was immune to this mysterious outbreak who just wanted her life to matter. So many themes and so many reasons why this game is so amazing. But a part of this game that's been less talked about is actually not related to Ellie or Joel at all. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Factions MP.
Hunter! One down. I'm wounded. Bullseye. Oh, I'm hit. One minute. I'm wounded. Look out. Right. Bullseye. Bullseye. Scratch. I got you. I'm wounded. I got you. Scratch. One less to worry about. One over there. Scratch. Keep going. Turret's down. That one's dead.
See, Factions wasn't even something that I knew existed initially. I spent my preteens watching people play Last of Us on YouTube because my parents wouldn't get me a PlayStation at the time. I was fucking up in school pretty bad, so it was justified. My 8th grade year, the same year I turned 13, I decided I was gonna get my shit together and lock in so I could get that PS4. I got my shit together, and lo and behold, I ended up getting a PS4 for my birthday. I would sit around and talk with my friends about what it would be like to play different games up until that point though. And 2 games they told me about that surprised me that had multiplayers were Metal Gear Solid, The Phantom Pain, and Last of Us. Now there's a reason Phantom Pain's multiplayer was never talked about, because that shit was ass and still is fucking ass. And I don't know if the servers are still up, but if they are, they shouldn't be. What I originally imagined that game to be was like similar to GTA, like a sandbox type of thing, but it was not that. And never was, and I just feel like there was so much missed opportunity with the game, like Metal Gear Phantom Pain. Multiplayer had so much potential here, but they just didn't deliver. But to be fair, right, to most, The Last of Us was not quite a diamond in the rough either. It had its issues, but it was a pretty good multiplayer. I don't think many people saw this coming, because when it dropped, I'm assuming people were expecting a co-op zombies mode, but that's not what we got. We got 3 completely different game modes. Supply Raid was the main mode that people played. It was a 4v4 TDM, and you guys had a total of 24 lives each. Once you guys ran out of lives, then basically it'd be done. And you would slowly start to wear each other apart. You could get parts as you kill people. You can craft items and objects to use to your advantage. And then later on in the game, you can purchase things like upgrades for your guns or like armor. See, in games like Call of Duty, you could zip around and run around the map by yourself and kill the whole team. Last of Us wasn't like that. You had limited ammo supply, semi-automatic weapons, characters were slow, and you definitely had to be aware of your positioning because you could get put down in a few shots. There was no bullet sponges in this game. And sprinting reveals your location on the map. In a game where resources are limited and teamwork is essential, showing up on the map for those few seconds can lead to your death and can also expose the rest of your team if you happen to be in the area of the rest of your team. And that's what made it unique. Position and coordination with your team was essential. Now at the highest level, you can run around with certain weapons and fuck people up, but the learning curve is steep. Most people give up when they start something they're not good at. And this is not like Call of Duty where like after a few games and you start catching a flow, you could start really putting in work. This was one of those games that took actual time and investment to be decent at. I would sit and watch videos for hours on how to be better at this game. Because the thing is, I kind of sucked at a lot of first-person shooters as a kid. I sucked at Call of Duty, I sucked at Destiny the Taken King, and I sucked at NBA 2K. So I mean, Factions was the thing I invested all my stock in because I knew that this was going to be my thing. And GTA 5 too, but that's a convo for another time, and that also came a little bit later. Here's how the game typically ran. You had several custom loadouts, and each loadout came with a mandatory pistol, and ideally a large firearm. In the large firearm category, there was the full auto rifle, which kind of sucked for the most part and was better used as a semi-automatic weapon, but it was a 5-shot down. There was a semi-auto rifle, which was a 3-shot down, easy to use and easy to master, similar to the revolver, which we'll get to later. The variable rifle, which was a 4-shot down, fast-firing scoped semi-automatic weapon, really fun and reliable. The burst rifle, which was a 5-shot down but a 2-shot headshot, one of the most try-hardiest weapons with a steep ass learning curve. Once it was learned, everybody fucking used this gun. The hunting rifle, which is your run-of-the-mill sniper, I was pretty good with this thing and I still kind of like it to this day. The frontier rifle, similar to the hunting rifle but without the scope, and it doesn't one-shot down even if it's a headshot for balance reasons, because you know you can't really have that. The tactical shotgun, which was basically a broken ass slug shotgun that when upgraded in game has the potential to wipe the whole team. One of the best weapons for beginners and one of the worst weapons for a tryhard to wield. It is such an annoying thing to go up against. And last but not least, the bow, which was my personal favorite. A 2-shot down and completely silent, but has a really steep learning curve and also has a weird aiming system and travel time when shooting. For pistols, we had the 9mm, which is a 5-shot down and a 2-shot headshot. For most people, you shouldn't have probably used. It was a free loadout point, so like if you were trying to really max out other areas, but this was not recommended for beginners because in order for it to really be useful, you'd have to land some headshots. You had your revolver, which was recommended for beginners and really anybody because it's a 3-shot down and it was very reliable and really good. You had the enforcer, which was a 4-shot down Desert Eagle type of gun. You had your shorty, which was a shotgun pistol, which was a 2-shot down up close and you know really good in combination with something like a bow or a hunting rifle. And then you had the shitty ass burst pistol, which was not even close to the same as the burst rifle, but it was pretty good for taking off armor and like, you know, stupid shit like that. But my opinion, a waste of money because this was a DLC gun. And lastly, we had purchasable weapons. And by purchasable weapons, some of them, yes, were DLC weapons you could purchase in the store. But when we say purchasable, we just mean you can use the in-game currency while you're in a match to purchase the weapon. These are like your special over-the-top, like overpowered things that obviously you couldn't use as a regular firearm because it'd be broken. You had the El Diablo, which was probably the most versatile and most underrated purchasable weapon. It was basically a 2-shot down revolver type weapon with a scope on the top. There's no ADS time or delay with this weapon. You can just press a button and then boom, you're zoomed in and you just took somebody out. Like it's actually really good. You had the crossbow, which had this like kind of odd, weird feature, which was a little different where when you shot somebody, it did like this weird bleeding effect and basically they would lose health over time. It was really good because it also marked enemies, like their whole body outline and you can see them through walls and stuff. So you or your team can chase down your prey once you hit somebody with it. You had your shotgun, which was so broken. And yeah, it didn't come with many shots and it was kind of expensive in game, but this was like one of the most broken weapons. It was an insta-kill gun. If you bought it out and shot somebody and they were anywhere from close to even sometimes mid-range, they would die. And yeah, that's how shotguns should work, which I agree with, but this gun, whenever you see anyone bring it out, they're either trying to do some kind of comeback because the team is lost by a big amount, they're trying to kill someone that's doing a comeback, or they're just being a dickhead and they can't play very well, so they're using it because they want an instant kill every time, like a guaranteed instant kill. You had the military sniper, which was similar to the hunting rifle. The only difference is that it was semi-automatic, and if you got a headshot, it didn't just down them, it killed them instantly, so they'd be executed and everything. You had the double barrel shotgun, which was basically like a purchasable version of the shorty. I used it quite a bit. If I was running like a bow and revolver setup and I wanted like a shotgun type weapon for close range, I would get a double barrel. You had the Spectre, which was a silent, fully automatic assault rifle. It was cool, and you know, you could probably get like 1 or 2 downs and it was pretty flashy. But again, once you're in game, those parts are so essential, and unless you maximize your loadout for getting ammo for your Spectre, there was really no point in carrying this one. Similar to the Spectre, you had the assault rifle, which was basically the same exact thing, but there was no silencer. And I think it was a 4-shot down instead of a 5-shot down. I could be wrong, but something like that. You had the launcher, which a lot of people used that ran sniping loadouts because you could hit someone with a body shot and then shoot the launcher, which was basically like a grenade. It could go behind cover and then down someone instantly. It seemed like a pretty fun one. I just never personally bought it or used it. From what I saw, whenever people used it, it seemed like they were having a lot of fun. The machete, which was basically just like a blade. You get 3 hits and then you could combo it with like certain weapons. It was alright. And then lastly, you had the flamethrower, which it's not what you think it is. It was actually really bad. and doesn't really kill that fast, even though it's a fucking fire gun. But I guess they didn't really know a way of balancing this thing, so they just kind of made it shitty. And it's cool. It sounds cool. It's a cool weapon, and when you kill someone, it's an instant kill. But it's pretty ass. But that's basically the weapons. Alongside the weapons, you had a bunch of different perks that could give you things that make you sprint for longer, heal people, or just straight up be invisible to listening mode while you're crouched. In game, you had throwables. You had nail bombs, which were basically like regular bombs that if they hit someone, they exploded. You had the smoke bombs, which obviously created smoke, so if you needed cover, or it can stun a person for 3 seconds and you could either kill them quickly or you could stab them. You had Molotovs, which was an insta-kill, but they just had a really weird aiming system. You had shivs, which were basically knives for stealth kills. You had things like the 2x4, which was a board that you get like as you progress throughout the game. Usually when you start losing or once you get later in the game, you can get this like melee weapon in a sense, and you can modify it to become an instant kill by eventually adding binding and a blade. And yeah, healing was done with medkits you could find around the map, or you could craft them yourself. And your only other option was either you had a teammate with first aid training 2 or up that can heal you, or you go to a box when you're low, and if you weren't under a certain amount of health, you just get canned food and that would feed you and you'd be good. There was lots of possibilities and different customizations here, and I'm not going to get into every single one because that's not what this video is about. This game was really fun in its prime, and it was a really tight-knit community. Everyone knew each other, the streamers, the YouTubers, and like just the community as a whole. You'd run into people all the time and get to play with everybody. Nowadays, it's best to probably play solo, because if you play with a teammate or a team of 4, you're going to run into a tryhard team because the servers are basically dead for the most part, and people that play this game are either extremely new or they've been playing since the beginning of time and they're like max level. And you know, mind you, if you see a level 999, that's a red flag because it's really difficult to level up in this game. Because of this game's kind of clunky animations and weird stuff at times, it was so cool to see people pull things off at the highest level, because when you're getting to learn the game, you're just kind of sneaking around and maybe aiming around the corners and trying to land the shots that you can. And aiming can also be difficult at times because it's a third-person shooter, it's not a first-person shooter. But once you got a flow going and you understood it a bit, it started to get exciting. Comebacks were such a cool thing for me to watch as a kid because the whole team would be dead and it's literally a 1v4. And this game is one of the most difficult games to clutch in. You can't just go in there and ramble your way to a victory, especially if you're one person alone, because there's so many different things that can kill you and so many ways you can die from weird angles. There's also a lot of instant kill potential with a lot of things here. You have the shotguns, the molotovs, etc. So you had to really be on your shit and on your P's and Q's. But every time I saw someone pull off a comeback when the other team had like 15 or 20 lives, it was always insane. There was a whole channel dedicated to Last of Us comebacks called Last of Us Comebacks. I had so many memories of this game, and I wish I would have held on to some of my old footage, but unfortunately I didn't, and most of it is, you know, no longer here. I probably deleted most of it, including YouTube videos from the past, and eventually it started to kind of die off in 2017 to 2018, and it also stopped receiving support sometime in 2018 as a whole, so that kind of sucked. The game had its flaws, don't get me wrong. Attack shotgun, the shotgun, and even the burst rifle depending on who was using it. And the movement system can be tough because sometimes you're trying to run away and you get stuck on a piece of geometry or a wall, and trying to unstick yourself is really hard because the buttons just don't immediately respond when you want to do something. And also hiding behind cover can be glitchy at times. The amount of times you can duck behind cover and still get shot is crazy because, you know, delay and like weird shit. And when peeking around the corner, the game does this weird thing where before you can like see anything, the enemy can see you. If they can see you, they can shoot you, even if you're not fully around the wall. So it looks like on your screen that they're shooting you through the wall, but on their screen they're shooting you. It's weird. If someone has poor connection, man, this was horrendous. The amount of things they'll be able to do because damage doesn't process is insane. You know, when I start to think about all this stuff, I kind of grieve factions a little bit because they didn't continue this in Last of Us 2, and maybe they couldn't justify support for it with the numbers that it did, and maybe it didn't do as well as they expected or didn't expect. I don't know, maybe they didn't expect anything at all. They just wanted to add it just so that they had a multiplayer. But imagine if we would have got factions with Last of Us 2 and you had features like prone, you had features like dodging, you had fucking going and cutting. Like there was so much creative shit you could have done in a factions if they released it for Last of Us 2. They would have been smoother movement and the multiplayer could have had so much potential. They could have even potentially added in some kind of zombies mode. I know it's cliche, but that would have been cool to have. We never actually got that in the original factions. But unfortunately, it seems like they're probably never going to end up releasing it. I'm not sure what the numbers were for factions and how well it did for Naughty Dog because the DLC weapons and everything related to DLC were dirt cheap. Like I said, it would have been nice to see it in Last of Us 2, but we probably will never get it, and I'm content with that and I'm cool with that, but I'm really not. But yeah, that's basically all I got for Last of Us Factions. This was a really good multiplayer that not many people knew about, but for the people that know, you know. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Deuces.